This is a day in my life. It's a Sunday, so this is really a rest day, so it's a little different for me. I won't be running around. So that way you can get an idea of what it is to live with diabetes outside of Shelby and the nameless woman from Memento. And I'll show you what I eat for breakfast, how I usually take insulin, and talk you through my diagnosis story while I do that. So one thing about me is I'm really obsessed with making matcha, so that's probably what I'm going to start doing first. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was about to be 16. It was 6 days before my 16th birthday. And some of the symptoms I was experiencing is like, sorry, that's my cat. She'll probably talk a little bit during this. I was experiencing extreme thirst in a lot of ways. I was really hungry all the time. I lost like 15, 20 pounds. I was not myself, in other words. So I self-diagnosed using WebMD in a lot of ways. We looked up all of the symptoms, my mom and I, and we were noticing how like I would go to class and I wouldn't be able to stay awake for long periods of time. I had prom and I dropped from a size 6 dress to a size 0, which was crazy. We had to thrift that. And so a lot of things were just not adding up in terms of my diagnosis. Initially, they had me on sliding scale insulin. So basically that's insulin vials and syringes. And basically I would take, I think, 15 to 20 units of insulin in the morning and then at night. Sliding scale did not work very good for me. I was also put on the keto diet, so I was not allowed to eat carbs at all, which is very dangerous for type 1 diabetics. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, or diabetics in general. Your body will start using your fat stores for energy, and that can make you lose more weight, and it's just not a good thing. Look at that. Love it. Love it. Love matcha. After I was diagnosed, I went to prom. Like 3 days afterwards, my blood sugar was in the 400s. My A1C in the 9s, which is your average blood sugar, so that was not good in the slightest. After a few months, I was able to get in with an endocrinologist who moved me to sliding scale or pen insulin. So that allowed me to use ratios, so like 1:4, so 1 unit for every 4 grams of carbs for breakfast, 1 unit for every 5 grams of carbs for lunch, and 1 unit for every 6 grams of carbs for dinner. I've always had to have rigorous amounts of insulin because I think I'm just more resistant, and also just like my chemistry at my age, because I am 21 now. So, but now, after a long and tedious process, I've moved to pump technology, and I'll show you how that would be different with my breakfast and everything. After being diagnosed, I heard a lot of negative information about diabetes, even in the first week. I remember going to the Renaissance Festival and hearing somebody saying like, oh, I'm gonna drink this milkshake and then I'm gonna become diabetic. And like a lot of people would come up to me and just have misguided information. Like they would tell me like, oh, don't eat sugar, or oh, why'd you do that to yourself? Instead of realizing that there's no specific cause, or we at least don't know what causes diabetes at this point. So it was always assumed that it was somehow my fault. This is my favorite matcha in the whole world, in case you're wondering. It is brown sugar cinnamon syrup. It is so good. I mean, my grandfather offered me not so legal substances in order to take care of my diagnosis because he didn't understand that I'm not in any pain. I just have to take insulin when I'm gonna have carbs. That's really the main part of it, and because my body doesn't produce insulin anymore. Thankfully, I've moved over to pump technology. So I have this little guy in my pocket. You can see it says, I don't know if you can see that. It says I'm low. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my blood test kit and see if that's accurate, because I don't feel low right now. I have my kit now. I take my strip, put that in my mirror reflect. I used One Touch. Shout out. Look, he's got a little smiley face. He says good morning usually. So I prick my blood, push it a little bit, and then 79. Alright, well, for that reason, I guess I'll have some free snacks. Not sponsored, these guys. I eat so many packs every couple of days. It's ridiculous. So that's another example of how diabetes can impact my life. Is like, I'll be doing something, all of a sudden I have to go get a to fix my low, or take insulin, or change a pump, or change a Dexcom, and that can be kind of annoying at times. Some added information about type 1 diabetes is that I have to get my blood checked once a year. This is to look at to see if I have any gluten allergies, how my thyroid is doing. I have to get my eyes checked to see if there's any impact on that because of diabetes at all. So there can be some added stress in a way, as well as how much I have to buy in terms of technology, because I'm both on a pump and a CGM system. So I have continuous glucose monitors and I have insulin pump infusion sets, which I think I have some. So these are the types of things that I will have with me all the time. Obviously you've seen the boy, the kit that I keep with me in case. This is Basaglar. I don't know if you can see him. He's basically like a sugar inhaler if I go really low. Thankfully, never had to use it. It used to be this giant EpiPen looking thing that you had to use. It's kind of scary. Then we have the G7. So this is my CGM. Currently on my leg, not an FDA approved spot, but it works for me. Then I have the Omnipod. You can see him on the other side. And my Omnipod right now is right there, if you can see him, sneaking out. And that is my insulin pump. And then of course we have the insulin that I put in those insulin pumps. Now I change my Omnipod about every 3 days. It's a fully automated device. Sometimes it has errors where I have to put it in manual mode. Overall, quite helpful in terms of technology. Sometimes it won't insert properly, and so that's another added disadvantage to it, is that I'll have to sometimes be a little bit more on top of it. Same thing with the CGM, because that technology is not always reliable. So you have to keep that in mind. I mean, the negatives are you have stuff on your body all the time, which can be kind of distressing at times because you can walk into things, they can hurt. Sometimes just inserting them can just be a pain after a long day where you're running around doing a bunch of stuff all day long, and then you come home and you're like, really? I have to put this on right now? I'd rather do anything else. But other times it can be great. I don't think about it at all. It can be really loud though. If I sleep on my CGM and it disconnects, then my phone will literally scream at me to fix it, which cannot be a wonderful way to wake up. It's better than the alternative, which is not having that technology. It can also be very expensive, and I'm grateful that I'm on insurance now because of my stepdad. When initially I was diagnosed, I was not insured. So there are a lot of cool programs with Dexcom and at least insulin or Humalog that allow you to afford those products if you're uninsured. So you're not alone in that. However, even with insulin, those copays will knock your socks off. My insulin, I get every 3 months, and I pay about $120 for my CGM, and I pay $120 for my Omnipod. Thankfully, this last time my insulin was covered. Don't know what magical being allowed that to be. There's a lot more, I mean, with fruit snacks, doctor visits, there's a lot more to diabetes than just the technology that I'll wear, as well as just like the mental struggle of going up and down on a regular basis and having to communicate how your diagnosis affects you to people that don't really understand can have a mental toll in a lot of ways. But look how beautiful she is. So I'm in this genre class where I'm doing some reading, and since it's Sunday, I'm not running anywhere, I'm going to do some reading. But before I go, I'm going to show you what I would give myself for insulin for this breakfast, and then I'll show you my reading setup because it's going to be really cute, and then I'm going to leave you for a little while. But we will come back at lunch and I will tell you about what I typically eat and walk you through that process. So I usually eat this for breakfast, the perfect bar. So it's 24 grams of carbs. This is around 20 is my guess. So I go into my insulin pump and I hit, it's a little guy, this button right there. And that's the insulin button. I put in carbs and 24 plus 20, so around 44. So I put carbs in there. I use my glucose, which is at 74. Granted, we know we fixed that, so that'll come up. So it's giving me 7.6 units. So my regimen for the morning is about 1 unit for every 6 grams of carbs. So like 44 divided by 6 is gonna equal 7. So that's where we get the 7.6. And it might be a little bit up because the pump automatically adjusts according to where I trend usually in the morning. So once I select that insulin is going to go through my pump into my arm, and I don't have to think about it outside of that at all. So I can take both these things, go enjoy them, not really think about it at all, and just check this in a few hours and see where I'm at. So I just finished reading my book for school. Shout out Eudora Welty, love her. Just finished it. I'm gonna have to read it again, but it's okay. At least I did read it. And now what I'm gonna do is probably start working on some stuff. I have a screenwriting presentation that's coming up for Brazil, and I'm gonna work on a little reflection. But just to give you an update, it's around 12:40 now, so it's been a minute. My blood sugar is going insane. Okay, so it does say that I can take 2 units, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Sometimes I don't always get it right in terms of guessing, so I have to go in and take more insulin, change things around. I did just finish that matcha, and there might have been more carbs with the brown sugar syrup than I originally imagined. And that's something that kind of like balance and adaptivity is something that I really learned going to like Camp Kudzu. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it is a camp for type 1 diabetics. Going to that camp, I went the summer after I was diagnosed, and it was really nice to be around other diabetics. That's something I don't experience really around here. The only diabetic that I know outside of myself is my manager from work. Love you, Chadwick. Other than that, I don't have like a lot of community around here to talk about bouncing off like the struggles with diabetes on a regular basis. Instead, it's mostly me dealing with stuff by myself. And everyone's diagnosis is different. Like for me, I don't eat like a lot of carbs. I'm really dairy free in a lot of ways because dairy upsets my stomach. I don't eat a whole lot, to be honest. I try to eat relatively healthy. Sometimes my blood sugar will go crazy regardless. It's an ebb and flow. It's constantly changing, which can be kind of annoying in a lot of ways. Oh, and now it's done. Like it's loud. You can always tell when it's done because it'll just scream at you and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? I know that sometimes it can be annoying that some of the only conversations that I can have about diabetes with people is like them mentioning, oh, my grandfather has diabetes. He died 2 years ago. And you're like, what am I supposed to do with that? Versus like when you're talking with someone who has diabetes, you're just kind of like, it's just regular life in a lot of ways. So you don't think like, oh, just had to give myself insulin, or oh, just had to eat some sugar, or Wow, I feel terrible right now because my blood sugar is high. That's not a part of the conversation at all because you just get it. On days like today where I can't go out for a walk because it's kind of rainy, I was hoping to go out and read, but it's being weird outside. Usually walking helps regulate my blood sugar a lot. Like, I try to walk at least once a day because I know that's really helpful. So being stuck inside is not helpful to my blood sugar, especially it being on the higher side right now. It's kind of giving me an idea of what it's gonna look like for the rest of the day. Granted, I woke up late, and usually when I do that, it means my routine's gonna be off, so it's not always the best. My A1C was 6.1, I think, or 6.5 when I last went to the endocrinologist. The endocrinologist, I go every 6 months. Usually it's every 3 months, but because it's in Atlanta, there's not a good endocrinologist out here. I have to drive a ways, so they moved me to every 6 months. So the last time I went was in February, I think. But I will have an appointment in the spring, which will be 3 or 4 months afterwards from that appointment because I'm moving to adult endocrinology because I'm graduating. So I was going to a child endocrinologist. I started there when I was 16. I went through 3 endocrinologists, I think. Love them over there. Some interesting situations, but I've been with them ever since I was diagnosed, so it's kind of like a mixed emotions type of thing, but I'm grateful to be moving off to somewhere that's pretty connected, so they'll share my medical history and everything. And really, I kind of just treat myself up until the point that I go to see my endocrinologist. Like, I'm responsible for making my decisions in terms of my ratios. In a lot of ways, I don't change my ratios too much, and if I had a problem, I could call and be like, hey, my blood sugar has been trending high for a few days, what would y'all recommend? And then they would like walk me through how to change my settings and stuff. But most of the time, I just let it be. I just try to drink plenty of water, and it really depends on what's going on, can affect my blood sugar. Right now that I'm high, like, I feel a little bit, like my head's a little all over the place. It's hard to figure out really what I'm doing, so this makes it a little more difficult for me to stay focused in a lot of ways. I'm gonna go ahead and start working on those writing projects, and then I'll catch you for lunch and walk you through that, and hopefully my blood sugar will have gone down, but if it doesn't, then I can talk about a little bit about that, and we'll see. Overall, not the most exciting day for you to follow along, but honestly, I'm grateful to not be running around. A lot of the time I'm having to run home, change something, run out again. It can be kind of annoying to be like, oh, let me remember to bring my vial of insulin and this pump and this alcohol swab, or oh, this is expiring in 20 minutes and I don't have any of that with me. So when I can be home and not be running all around, that can be really helpful. I do know that having my Dexcom on my leg, it's made it less accurate, so I'm probably going to move it back to my arms, which is what the FDA recommends, so don't tell anybody. I usually wear my Dexcom G6, which is the older generation, and was a bit bigger on my leg. Kind of annoyed that I'm gonna have to wear it on my arm because I like wearing my Omnipods on my arm. I'm rolling with the punches. So I'll check with you about lunch, and hopefully my blood sugar will have come down from there. I'll be working on my screenplay as well that is talking about a diabetic character, and really I'm doing my diagnosis story and how it was far from the usual process. I've gotten most of it written out. I'm probably gonna go in and fix a few things. I'm also gonna do some editing of the vlogs. Hi everybody. It's a little later than I thought it would be, considering I was working on my Brazil presentation. I don't know if you can see that. I love it, I love it, I love it. It's for my advanced screenwriting class. And I worked on it for 3 hours. So it is now 3 o'clock. I usually don't eat lunch this late, but thankfully because of the pump system, I can actually delay my lunch time. Now, you know how I said earlier I was rocking with like 300, I think, was my blood sugar? 94. So I've got a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some chips, and I think I have 2 ounces of chips, so that's going to be around 30 grams of carbs, plus I have a sandwich which is probably around 25 for the bread. So we'll go with about 55, and then I'm putting my glucose in as 94, and that is 9 units. Perfect. Absolutely incredible that I can have a pump because I can just forget to eat lunch for
like hours and still be okay. I think this is very antithetical to how a lot of people imagine having diabetes. They think if you don't eat, like, you're gonna like have complications or like lose your legs or lose your eyesight. I get a lot of people telling me like, oh, you gotta be careful, something bad will happen to you. And I'm like, in actuality, most of the time, it doesn't really affect me until it comes down to eating or because I have to change a pump site or a sensor site. However, there are times with like the high blood sugar earlier where I was like a little bit out of it and like, I'm really hungry right now, so like I feel a little bit off, but that's just kind of like natural. Thankfully, I didn't have a low blood sugar because my sensor and Omnipod were connecting, so that way they're keeping me afloat. A lot of people tend to romanticize these sacrifices or these imagined sacrifices that they conceive that diabetics are facing. And this made me think of like Joseph Campbell's Power of the Myth, which we were studying for our advanced screenwriting class, as I showed you my PowerPoint that I was working on. Thinking of that in tandem, I want to connect how sacrifice and how diabetes might be mythologized or symbolized for a lot of people outside of its realities. As you can tell today, like, my day in the life is pretty average compared to any other college student, except for the fact that I have to carb count and think a little bit more mindfully about my food, and occasionally might have a high blood sugar that could affect my way of thinking. Like, I might look back on my PowerPoint and be like, what was I doing? But at least I was able to keep working on it. But anyways, I will see you in that Power of the Myth vlog.